In our society, sometimes we feel like we don't have choice. We feel like we're stuck in this life. And that was this employee. He felt like he was stuck in this life because he did this, and this, and that's it. I'm stuck. I can't do anything different. And now I'm down this path and my life is miserable and the world is different and everything's miserable. But as soon as he now realizes it's a choice, now he realizes he can change anything. And that's empowering. You can change anything. If you live in a life you don't like, change it.
Hi, I'm Nick Warner. As a dad, a lucky husband, and as a business coach, I value people and relationships above all else. But next is winning, sustainability, and healthy culture. I've been a business owner for 25 years and served for decades as a special advisor to business and government leaders at all levels. Let's just say I've seen some stuff. My passion and my expertise are helping motivated professionals and businesses find the highest level confluence of what they want in life and business. This is what it feels like to be together at the top. Thank you to our sponsors, the law firm of Scholes, Brick & Rogaski, Kathy Olson at Chips and Trips, and Three Bridges Consulting. Pete Rogers is the CEO of Java City, a Northern California coffee institution. I would argue Java City was Starbucks before Starbucks, but the leadership has changed since days of Java City being the go-to place to meet up to now having 0 stores. Make no mistake, Java City is still a leader in the coffee world by distributing through great restaurants and increasingly through retail outlets like Target, Sprouts, Raley's, and Amazon. However, that's not why I asked Pete to join us today. I asked him to join us today because he has unique life experiences that brought him to this place in the international coffee business, and he's an expert in wellness and stress management. Given that this show focuses on building awarenesses and skill sets for leaders and emerging leaders, Pete is the perfect guest to learn from. Stress management's a major piece of what I talk about with leaders and emerging leaders, so I can't wait to hear more from Pete. For context, Pete retained me for speech prep for a big presentation he had recently, and I liked him from the jump. And I keep coming back to him in my mind to think about the things he said in that speech and about success and health. Pete Rogers, it's an honor to have you on the show today. Where are you? And please say hello to the listeners of Together at the Top.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm here in Sacramento, California at the corporate office. We also roast here, and anybody who's in the Northern California area, more than welcome to stop by for a cup of coffee. We welcome you over here. We'd love to have you over and talk coffee and consciousness as well.
Yeah, fun. Coffee and consciousness. Ooh, that's a good title for the show. For those of you who work on the show behind the scenes, you might have just titled it yourself. With your indulgence, Pete, let's go backward before we go forward. Tell us about your background and how you came to be CEO of Java City.
Sure. Java City, as you said, was a beautiful local brand. It's been around for a long time. Formed in 1985, and it was founded by a guy named Tom Weborg and his wife. And they built the company up to a nice size, sustainable company, over 100 coffee shops, a local roaster starting for 1 on 18th and Capitol here in Sacramento, and really positioned themselves as one of the premier brands within a 20-year window by early 2000s. They'd looked at trying to exit out of it, and they started to entertain offers. One was Starbucks, I heard. One was Pete's, I heard. And they ended up selling to a company in Ireland called Bewley's. And Bewley's had gone around and looked at acquisitions in the U.S. And Bewley's ran it for 20 years. And as we all know, running a business overseas and multiple from overseas is really difficult personalities, different operating systems, different people. And if you're not there, the best fertilizer on any business is the shadow of the ownership. And that ownership just didn't come frequently enough. And it was really difficult for him to run a business this far away, Ireland all the way to California. So I was looking for a roaster for a cooperative that we started. And when I say we started, the coffee farmers came to me and said, "Hey, Pete, how can we make more money?" And I said, "Start your own brand." And we started for them. It's a U.S. corporation, a brand called Coffee Farmers Co-op, and it is owned by farmers. They own it, and they one farmer, one vote. And we had a great relationship with a roaster in Canada that ended up selling, and that buyer didn't want to continue roasting coffee for the farmer. So we started to look for a roaster on the West Coast. 2023, I came here to Java City, and I said, "Hey, do you guys have any excess capacity?" And they said, "No, but why don't you buy the company?" And I said, "No, I don't want to buy the company. Can you guys roast for them?" And we entertained those. And I got to know the company and the people here, great quality people, great company, great potential. Java City had really died a lot. It had just gone from well over 100 million to well below 100 million. And so we talked to the family, and, I've been in coffee since 1979. And I said, well, what do you guys think? So here we are fortunate enough to have our son, Kyle. My daughter, Laura, does some part-time work with us. Our son, John, wife, Kirsten, daughter-in-law, Alex, daughter-in-law, Sydney, all helping us out here. And then today we have every day Snoop Dogg comes in, and then our grandson, Jasper, the youngest grandson. So it's a real family business, 41 people here in Java City. It will become an ESOP. That's what we're working towards right now. It's going to take us, Bobby, 18 months to 2 years to really get that done. And we're just honored to be the stewards of this brand now and take it along and bring it back up to its greatness that it was in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I appreciate this. The best fertilizer is the absence of the leader, the shadow of the leader. I've never heard that. Not to key. I mean, you said a lot of interesting things, but that is a really interesting point and something I've actually run into before. Hey, where's that boss in his RV? When's he coming in? We're not sure. I'm like, that's fertilizer.
Yeah.
You know what fertilizer? Yeah, that's a really, really interesting way to say it. Did people tell you you're wrong or crazy to mess with something that had been such a good thing? Did people look at you askance or like you were crazy to take the company in this direction?
It's a great question. I think Java City had lost a little bit of who they were, and they were struggling. And in that struggle was quality of coffee and relationships to farmers. And certainly COVID had a lot to do with that. And that COVID, hangovers. There's a lot of businesses that just struggled in COVID. And Java City got to be where they sold to restaurants, office, coffee service, hotels, hospitality. And of course, those are the areas that get hit the hardest. And so here they go down to several $1 million a year in revenue, and they just can't make it, and they can't recover from it. So we knew the first thing we'd have to do would be crazy to stay in that same business, but to widen our perspective and to widen our offering. So we increased the quality of the coffee and the relationships within it, and then how to roast. And roasting's one of my first areas I played around with. And just how do you express roasting? If I gave you, Nick, a loaf of bread, and I gave you a microwave and I said, hey, make this a crust on the outside, warm on the inside loaf of bread, you wouldn't be able to do it, right? So you have to have the right equipment, which Java City definitely does. But then you also have to do the right thing within there. It's energy, right? And how do you take this endothermic balance of energy coming in and balance of energy going out and make a perfect roast? It's like baking. It's like cooking. It's like anything. It's a science, but you have to repeat it. So that took us a little bit of time. Now we got a great roasting team now. We've got a great packaging team now. We've got great coffee culture here. We've got several Q graders, which are like sommelier for wine. And they're all here to make sure the consistency is right. And we had to go through and really reinvent who we were and then find out who we are now. And there's a focus on cold coffee now. And so we've started to do a really good cold brew. It's the first cold brew extractor of its type in the world. And we're using that. It's a really, really great invention here from a guy in Northern California. We love the machine. So we're just continuing to build up things that are current, because coffee right now, cold, is about 70% of Starbucks sales. And so just shifting our right people into the right seats, doing the right thing, right pieces of equipment. We just operating system. Literally, our operating system was a green screen. No joke. It was a computer green screen. We had to upgrade that and just go back and fix it. So I think the answer to your question is yes, people thought I was absolutely crazy because there were so many things to be fixed. But it's fun. It's a challenge, and every day there's new challenges. And I'm grateful to be here with family working on it, as well as the other 41 people that will all be owners, and we'll co-own this together and work together as equals.
I came up with that question because when I first met you, I think I said, how many stores do you have these days? And you said 0 without qualification. And my head spun around and I wanted to say, like, what are you talking about? And I didn't understand. Like, well, how do you get to market? And so as you started to explain that, I mean, I asked at the beginning permission to go backward, to go forward, and I still think we're going backward a little bit, but you did that from a business sense. You questioned everything around you and kind of went backward to the basics and then found a different way to get to market.
Yeah, and we still have the challenges of blocking and tackling to do every day, getting the order out quickly and efficiently, and the inventory and counting. And those are just, as long as they become daily, if it's not a continual systems process or a person process, or people don't wake up and say, I want to do a bad job. They just don't know how to do it if you don't teach them. And that's our fault. A really good example, a guy came in, did production really well, and the shipping and receiving manager left, and he said, I can do that. So I said, great, I put him into it. I took a really good job, he was doing a good job, and gave him too much, and then he got overloaded. Whose fault is that? It's my fault, right? It's not his. So we got to find the right thing they can do and let them do that really, really well. and then let them grow into it. But overloading them, definitely we tend to do here as we take companies on. We have to be really careful that we maturely, cautiously let them grow and accelerate and be successful in the company.
You talked about this age-old axiom. It's in a lot of books, Good to Great. Who is another book I love, where you got to get the right people. The job of the CEO, or the first job of the company, is to find a CEO, which they did with you, but that's not enough. So the smart, excellent, experienced CEO has got to go find a talent. Still not enough. You got to put that a talent in the right position, in a position, and then you can't set it and forget it. You got to look at it over and over, and you got to back up if you've overloaded somebody, or if the portfolio is switched, or if relationships have switched. But in that same discussion, Pete, you brought up bringing family in, which I was going to ask you about family, just impact of family. And frankly, I remember, but I probably underattended to the importance of having your family around you. But that's an interesting, unique, kind of different way of handling it. How does that work with your other employees, and how does family, I don't even sure exactly what to ask, because it's such an interesting setup and it seems to be working well. How did you get to that, and how does it work, for lack of a better way to ask the question? Does it work?
What we decided to do was all become equals from the family perspective. So that's not going to be something that we build up together and then I gift it to them at some point in time when the end of my life is here. So that way we'd be working as equals. And then we all decided as equals to make sure that everybody worked together as equals as well. So when we talk, even though I may have more experience in one particular area, it doesn't mean that I'm the boss and everybody else has to listen to me, right? There's no level of superiority or inferiority. And that's what we're trying to do, is to get rid of the superior-inferior relationship, which can be very common in a company. And how do you get that superior-inferior relationship so everybody can work as equals? It's Adlerian in its philosophical view, and being a student of Adler, and we look at kind of how to not start relationships with people within work where they feel inferior. And the first thing was to make sure that they were interested in doing it, because otherwise they would do it because I asked. And several of them weren't. That's no problem with it, right? And if they're interested in it, are you guys bought in? Are you willing to put the hours in? Are you willing to go to battle? And when things get tough, be there on Saturday and Sunday, and be there at 8:00 at night. And John and Kyle, two boys. Kyle's the COO. He's my right seat. And John's director of sales. Both said, yeah, and my wife, Kirsten. So the four of us are here. And our daughter, Laura, said, I'll give you some time, but I'm going to keep my current job. And our son, Matt, said, I'm going to stay with my current thing and do that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But still, we all share this as owners. So to blend us all in as owners, rather than there be a superior-inferior relationship, or, I'm the boss, you guys listen, I think has helped mitigate any potential family problems, because it is easy for us to go backyard into the boardroom. And it's easy for parents to look at kids as kids, and it's easy as kids to look at parents as parents inside the boardroom. And that's what you have to stop in a family business. You can't take the backyard and bring it into the boardroom. There has to be a differentiation of relationships. And they wear three different hats. They're a board member inside the company. And then, of course, they're a son or a daughter, or I'm a parent. And those are three completely different hats that you have to know when to put them on and when to take them off.
Yeah, I appreciate this verbiage around backyard to boardroom. I appreciate it because it crystallizes the issue. And then I think he or she who adults best wins. You're adulting around potential problems and using words and governance and other people's experience and potentially your own to avoid some of these same mistakes. But the verbiage you wrap it in backyard to boardroom is really poignant with me. It lands. I appreciate that. And you see that with friends too. You see, I work with a business here locally, and the issue they have is they're all friends and they come in being friends and the business is going well. And one of the things they struggle with is their meetings, they bleed. And I actually just got to the juicy middle, I think this week, when I heard we do have meetings regularly. We never miss them, but we spend like half hour at the beginning, like catching up on all our friend stuff. And then the agenda gets so compacted, we never get through our big stuff. So I wrote that down because it's interesting for the show, but also that's going to help me help others. I really appreciate that verbiage. Any additional thoughts on that or teachings on that?
Bringing that layer in, we also teach neuroscience too. So every week, I'll do 2 one-hour sessions for anybody in the company who's interested. And I think that's really powerful too, because that's constant reminder. We're not going to be a company, like you said. You just can't set it and forget it. You've got to live it. You've got to be in it every single day. And when we look at the neuroscience piece, what we'll do is we'll look at some of the successful work that somebody has created, and then we'll just teach that and we'll talk about it. And they're Socratic in their in their discussions, because it's supposed to be a round table. It's not me giving a presentation. It's me introducing a concept and we discuss it. And sometimes there may be an issue at work that gets brought in, or sometimes there may be an issue at home that gets brought in, or sometimes it may be just a philosophical discussion. But by creating the conversation, that really helps us as a company, and it's dedicated towards this concept. For example, right now we're reading a wonderful book I'd recommend to anybody who runs a company. It's called The Courage to Be Disliked. And it is on the philosophical aspects of Alfred Adler. But The Courage to Be Disliked is a great, wonderful book. And if you listen to it, I'd recommend listening to it because you can drive, listen to it, and come back. You're going to get an older philosopher who is discussing it with a younger kid. Of course, the young kid is here saying, I'm going to teach you how about life, and you're wrong, and you're this, and you're that. And the philosopher says, like, hey, welcome to discussion. And it's just them going through the book, discussing it. But it does take courage. And yeah, some people aren't going to like what you do. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, But you have to have that courage to take those steps, to do the things that are the right things, to say the things that are open on the mind, to be open and honest and really solve problems. Because the reality of it is we all get up every day and we want to make the company successful and we want to do a good job. And like I said, I don't think anybody gets up and says, I'm going to mess this company up today, right? So since we all have the same objective, we just have to communicate better. And most of the problems are interpersonal relationship problems or miscommunication problems. There's people reading something into an email that wasn't intended, or people hearing something that wasn't meant. And that could be based off of past belief systems, a parent or a teacher or something that stuck with them, or maybe even a past conversation where they got a reaction that they read into and they're carrying that reaction incorrectly forward and using that.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. I've lost myself a couple times already in this interview thinking we're in a coaching session, but you be the coach. Ironically, you hired me to help you, with some coaching around speech development. But there's been a couple of times like, hey, Nick, you're running a podcast. I've been taking notes since you started talking. So I appreciate that. Let me get us back into posture to get into the coffee and consciousness, which I think will end up being the title of this episode. And that's kind of how I set up my thought process around this discussion. Let me go sideways a little bit, because what comes with this is stress for others, maybe not as much for you, because at some point I want to ask you to really delve into your expertise. And you did this amazing exercise with me when we were doing speech prep and had me do a breathing exercise, and I did terrible at it. I don't hate the idea of us doing that again. And people can hear what it sounds like, because it can be replicated like tomorrow. The people that listen to the show are leaders and emerging leaders, and it's freaking stressful. And some of what you taught me impacted me immediately, even though I did bad at it. So let me just take us to some of the, and this is also, I just find fascinating. I've called you a couple times and you've been like in the fields of South America. It's like, I think you said you're an agronomist by training. Is that correct?
No. Only absorbing agronomy. I'm not a trained agronomist. I'm a non-trained agronomist, but I've done enough around field work to understand agronomy.
Okay. I appreciate that. You travel internationally to find coffee. Tell us what international business life looks like. And again, I set that up against the backdrop of it can be stressful and hard. So that's the line I'm getting to now. But tell us about international travel.
So that's a great lead into stress. So I don't find travel stress, and I don't find that, but I choose not to have it stressful, right? And I enjoy travel, and I get a chance. And I get the opportunity to meet farmers at their house and sit across from their table, shake their hand, get a cup of coffee with them, hear their story. I get the opportunity to help them and rebuild their community. I get the opportunity to buy the coffee from them, give them security. And, I get the opportunity to introduce them to some of our customers. Blackbird Diner is a great customer of ours. And the founder of Blackbird Diner came down with us to meet the farmers as well, too, gentleman Bruce Steen. As we build up this company with the relationships, that is really important, is to go to the farmer, go to the customer, and introduce those two. And that's the success of what we try to do when we travel internationally. And it is never stressful, because French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said we live in 3 letters of the alphabet, and 3 letters only. And they are B, C, and D, where B represents birth, and D represents death, C represents choice. And in between birth and death, all we have is choice. So choosing to live that life that we want to live and choosing to do the things that we want to do is important, but we bring awareness to those, and then we solve that and bring an awareness to it. Our brains are wired right now to live in stress. Our brains and our physiological aspects of the body are reacting to the stress. And it's stressful right now. We have war, we have travel issues, we've got TSA issues, we've got government issues, we've got elections, we've got companies, we've got finances, we've got oil, we've got all these things going on. And our brains are getting wired to live in a stressful life as normalcy. And that is the huge epidemic that we all face as leaders, because in recent studies right now, stress costs U.S. corporations $322 billion a year. That's a phenomenal number coming from the Institute of Stress in a study last year. And 1 million workers call in sick every day due to stress. 75 to 90% of all primary care visits from physicians, primary care, have a stress component to it. And yet we as leaders have no idea how to deal with it. None. So what I would like to do as a gift to give your listeners is give them 3 tools they can take away today, that they can put into work today, that you and I will talk about today. And I'll give those to them right now so they can become aware of, be able to correct it and be able to fix it. And it can happen within them very quickly, within 90 seconds. Scientifically proven by the Institute of Heart Math, a wonderful organization I'd recommend people research. That's in Santa Cruz, California. Wonderful organization. And then also Stanford Research Institute has done some great studies on stress and stress in the workplace. And both of those are wonderful organizations that have done a lot of studies on it. So if you need the scientific background, it's all there. And I can give you some links that you can put on the podcast as well, too.
Yeah, you said you were going to walk us through it. I'm ready. I mean, I had my own staging for the conversation, but if anybody's curious why I asked Pete Rogers to be on the show, I doubt you are anymore. And as we keep talking, I don't know what you're going to say. I'm guessing people will be up on their elbows with a pen in their hand, like I am.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not a brilliant podcast, so it's prompt to say, like, will you keep talking? But will you keep talking?
Sure, of course I will. My own journey of this learning has brought me through a lot of the great teachers. So I do want to give credit to those teachers. And there's one who talked about the cell structure. It's Dr. Bruce Lipton. And Dr. Bruce Lipton, also from Santa Cruz, started to talk about cells and how cells look for information and read that information, and that they're always regenerating. We have 40 to 50 trillion cells in our body. We're all different, but somewhere's around there. And Dr. Bruce Lipton has done some wonderful work on that study of those cells, how they regenerate. And a cell basically just being like a computer waiting for you to load programs into it. And Dr. Bruce Lipton saying, hey, if this cell is regenerating in our podcast, probably billions of them, and they're waiting for information to feed them, what information are we going to feed them? Are we going to feed them the news, the stress of life? Or are we going to feed them a different program? And sometimes the programs that come in from our BS or our belief systems, and our belief systems come into our lives from ages 1 to 7. And it's usually from parents, from teachers, pastors, whoever starts to shape how we look at society. And it continues to grow, but during those first 7 years, that's where we absorb the most information and set the most patterns. The ability to become aware of those stressful habits, called metacognition scientifically in neuroscience, to become aware of something and then to change it, is what Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about. He is a wonderful, wonderful source of information and a great person for anybody who's looking at a book to read. He, in the 60s, started to understand cells and how cells work, and it's called The Biology of Belief. If anybody's looking at neuroscience and biology, that's a great place to look. And that was the first place I stepped into, was Dr. Bruce Lipton. The what, the how does the body work? And I started to get more into how the neuroscience works in the brain. And in the brain, basically, its success is it's going to work through problems, and it's going to look at yesterday. And yesterday, if we survived yesterday in a lot of stress over the war or whatever, it's going to basically program the same things for us today. And I guess you can probably think of how tomorrow's going to look, right? We already pretty much know. And it isn't that we're broken, all right? And it isn't that we don't know how to do this. It's very easy to do. It's just that we let the stress habit go in the background. It's kind of like your blood pressure or your blood sugar or your heartbeat. See, the brain's really efficient. And if it finds something, it'll start to do that over and over and over again, and it'll just do it. So the program runs, and it runs in the background. And your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information in through the eyes, that gets about 2 million bytes of information a second, that reticular activating system is going to filter out all but 50 bytes of information a second. And if you're really stressed out, the reticular activating system is just going to bring in more things to stress you out, because it's going to assume that yesterday you were stressful, so today you have to be as well. Ever wonder why you decided you wanted to look at Teslas, and the next thing you know, you can only find Teslas all over? Tesla ad, and there's a Tesla car, and It's because the reticular activating system was filtering them out before, and now it's bringing them in. That's all how it works. Your state of being in what we call coherence is where we get into heart math. Because being out of coherence or incoherent means that we're living in a state of stress, And being coherent is living in a state of creation. And that's the first thing that the Institute of Heart Math will teach people, and that is how to focus your attention in the area of your heart. Now, it sounds kind of fluffy and it sounds new age, but it's not. It's scientific. Because if we give the brain nothing to do, what's it going to do? It's going to go back to yesterday and find stressful things. But if we give the brain something to do, focus on the heart, it's going to focus on the heart. Now we're assigning the heart, right? Now, the heart does have a brain. That's one thing that people don't realize. And there's 40,000 sensory neurites in your heart that align and form much like the neurites in your brain. Your heart has memories, your heart has emotions, and your heart acts much like the brain. But in research studies at Stanford Research Institute, the heart brain realized before the brain, about 1.5 seconds before the brain, images and pictures and reactions. Now, if anybody's questioning that, think about how many times you anticipated or felt something, right? You could sense somebody when you walked into a room, or you get a gut feeling that it was bad before you started to think about it, right? We've all done that. And that's really our natural state, is to live here in our hearts, not in our brains. Because if I was to ask you right now, just think of nothing, you wouldn't be able to do it, right? But if I asked you to think of your heart, focus on your heart, you're able to do that very easily. So a really good step there is to focus attention on the area of the heart. Once you do that, you're going to start to slow down your breathing. Why do we bring up breathing? Well, breathing is really, really important to us. And in a study that was done in Buffalo in 1929, the average person, well, let's take a minute from 1929, right? 1929. I mean, just think about what was going on in 1929 with the Great Depression. And the University of Buffalo did a study, which they published in the Journal of Physiology in 1929, that said the average person was breathing 4.9 breaths per minute, right? They did the study again 10 years later, 5.3 for males, 4.6 for females. That was published in the Journal of Nutrition in 1939. And yet today, breaths per minute averages between 15 and 20. So if we are breathing faster, what state are we in? We're in a state of stress. And we start to get into that state, and the brain starts to think we have to be that way. And you just start to breathe faster and faster. And as our breaths per minute got greater, in the 50s, it was 6.9, and 82 was 9.1, and 95 was 12 to 15, 2000s was 12 to 17, and today 15 to 20. We can see this, we're just starting to, it's a hyperventilation epidemic is basically what it is. So bringing our attention to the area of our heart, trick number one, but also breathing in a pattern. And you and I are going to do this right now, all right? And so I'd ask people to bring your attention to your heart. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is to breathe in for 4 seconds, just a little pause, and then exhale for 5 seconds. All right, just bring in for 4, little pause, exhale for 5. And count those seconds as comfortable as it is for you, right? Be very comfortable in your breathing. Long or slow seconds, doesn't matter. Now you're focusing your attention on the area of your heart. And you're imagining that breath is going in and out of your heart or your chest area. Now, within about 60 seconds, you're starting to feel more relaxed, aren't you? Yeah. And in 90 seconds, 1,400 biochemical reactions are occurring to get you out of stress and into creation. And that is what's happening to you. And that's from the Institute of Heart Math and Stanford Research Institute, both studying that. So when you do that, in 90 seconds, you can change yourself. Asking yourself to focus on your heart gives your brain something to do, right? You have to do that because the brain is going to go crazy if you don't. You're going to sit there focusing on your breath and you're going to, oh, I've got that email. Oh, I got to talk to, I got to call Pete Rogers. I got to do that. And you're never going to stop. Now, one little trick that I do add in is to have something grateful that you're grateful for. And when you're breathing in, think of that thing that you're grateful for. Again, you're giving your brain something to do. I'm gratitude for a person or a place or a thing. I'm very grateful for Java City. And I get to work with my family, right? That's an easy one, right? And being grateful for something. And those are your 3 quick takeaways. You can do this while you drive. You don't have to have your eyes closed. I have done it while I drive. I usually do it when I cross door frames for meetings to make sure I set my intention. And when I say set intention, I want to make sure I go into a meeting that I'm relaxed. But the first thing I do in that meeting is that same exercise you and I just did. The first 90 seconds of any meeting starts like that, because we want everybody in the room to be in an equal state as well. And we all want to be thinking of positive solutions. We don't want to be thinking of stress, because somebody's going to carry in what happened in the warehouse and sit down at the conference table, and they're going to bring that to us. Or somebody's going to bring what happened in the warehouse and sit down and be from a calm state of mind. Hey, here's a challenge for us to work on. And it changes the entire group. But there also is some training that we do to get them to that. And that is the Courage to be Disliked is a wonderful book. But anything on neuroscience, I teach them. I teach them heart math tricks. I teach them Adler's, Socrates, and we just work through the different great thinkers at the time.
I find it fascinating when you mentioned that you teach this say a little more about that. You're not an agronomist. You're not a PhD in stress management, but you've been marinating in these things. You're a businessman and you teach this. That really got a business guy. That really got my attention that you teach this in your company. Can you say more about that, please, so we can learn from you?
Sure. We will do 2 different classes, and we open it up to anybody, and they usually will go to that same class. It's at 11 and 12 every Friday. They're 45 minutes.
These are your employees. When you say open to anybody, you mean anybody at Java City. These are your employees.
Correct, yeah. Although I do think I want to start to do them on a Saturday at Java City. And if anybody has any interest, I'll just have a coffee and consciousness class. We'll teach them about coffee, do some consciousness, and take a little Saturday morning. So what we do at Java City is we sit down here in this office, and we all, of course, do a quick breathing, and we get in, and then we'll go through the concepts of whatever we're reading, or concepts of the work that went in and how we handled that challenge or that problem. We use those real live examples of challenges, and we'll teach them the different books and how those books look. And, I think you brought it up correctly. I'm not a teacher, right? I guess I'm more like a high school teacher, right? What did high school teachers do? They read a bunch of books and they teach them to kids. That's kind of what I think of myself as. I'm not a creator. I didn't write this stuff. I'm more like the conduit in between 2 power poles to get people to connect between the concept and the reality. A really good example is last night. I'm leaving probably a little before 6 o'clock at night. One of the newer employees had come in, and he was leaving at the same time. And as he was leaving, I heard this coming around the corner, just about to go out the front door. This, I'm like, you all right? Everything good? Oh, I'm just tired. I've been here since 5, and I worked really hard, and I don't take any lunch, and I don't do this. And I go, stop. Why do you choose to live that life? Why do you choose to be answering that question like that? Because if I ask you this question, I want you to answer it. Do you get to work, or do you got to work? And he goes, I got to work. I got to earn income. I go, then your mentality is always going to be, I got to do this. But if you say, I get to work, I get to change things, I get to build teams, I get to correct, it's a completely different mindset. And since your mindset is one of, I'm tired, I work too hard, I never get breaks, then your mindset's always going to be that. And if you're never going to be able to change in your life, it's because of that. You have chosen this life. And you can do anything that you want. And mostly when we teach the classes, it's exactly what we do. And he hadn't had the chance to come into any of the classes yet because he's new, right? And so I asked him, I said, look, I'm going to give you a book to read, Courage to be Disliked. And I want you to listen to it. And I would recommend people listen to it because it's a wonderful conversation. And when you listen to it, I want you to write me a chapter review. And how long is your commute home? He said, it's about an hour. I go, great. You'll be through that book by next week at this time. So I got home, I had dinner, I opened up my computer just to close out some emails, and there was the first email from him, whole chapter.
Whoa.
Said, I love this book. This is great. But it's amazing. But we as leaders, we tend to think stress and things like that are somebody else's problem because we're not armed with how to deal with it. And so here's a kid, he's stressed out, military, veteran, wounded veteran, and all the things that you could imagine go with that with him. Really great kid. But yet stress has got him, life has got him, wife has got him, kids have got him. And yet if we just walked away and I just didn't say anything, then he would have just lived in that world of stress. Now he's got his wife reading the book. Now he's changing. Now he's talking about his kids and the way he can change his life and his family and his kids. It isn't just here, Nick, because like that example, he takes it home and he changes his relationship with his wife and he changes his relationship with his kids and his church and his community. And he continues, and that changes the next person because he becomes a mentor of it or he becomes a coach of it. And that's basically the way that I look at my responsibility here.
I had a similar situation, not similar, because it wasn't an employee, it was just a social situation where somebody asked me yesterday, how you doing? And I said, I'm doing great. And he was completely taken aback by my answer. And when I talk to you, I'm more conscious. And one of the reasons I wanted to really deep dive is I want to stay on this, and I want to do the breathing, and I want to be better. But it really stuck me because he goes, you're great. I said, yeah, I am actually. And he's like, oh, okay. I said, how are you? He goes, I'm fine. And he goes, why are you great?
Yeah.
It was such an interesting guy. I said, I don't know. I like what I do. Like, I actually saw him at the gym. It was a lunch break. I'm like, he was so taken aback by my answer. It stuck with me. I haven't categorized what to do with it yet, other than I'm fortunate that was my honest answer, is I'm great. And I didn't mean to bring it up on the show, but when you say that, it's the same thing. And I also think some bosses ingrain it, where you ask the boss, how you doing? The boss says, good, man. I'm busy as all get out, but good. You know, it's a lot, but garbage in, garbage out in a way.
Yeah, it's true. Or people will say, I'm living the dream. And I always ask, what's that dream? Tell me it right now. I want to hear it. I want to hear your dream. It is true, though. We tend to get into these habits and patterns based off of our belief systems from our parents and our teachers. I was working with a surgeon from Kaiser, and he was definitely stressed out, and he was really, really struggling with all of the responsibilities. And at that particular time, I was in a traffic jam where 80 and business 80 connect, and they cross, and everybody right goes left, and everybody left goes right. I was in the middle lane, 2 lanes to my left, 2 lanes to my right. I'm in the middle lane, and there's an accident in front of me, about 11 cars up. I can see it. Now, I am sitting there while he's arguing with me why all of these concepts are wrong, that your brain is this, and your life isn't this, and you can't choose to live this stuff. This is the stressful life you live, and you take on your responsibility with your job, and that's what you do, and you can't change anything, and you can't change that perspective. And he's arguing that with me while I am listening to him, working on my breathing, while I listen to him, and I'm really sending beautiful, healing, positive energy out to the person up there in the accident, who probably is going through the worst day they've had in a long time. There's a really nasty accident up there. I look over to my left. I see somebody listening to music and kind of dancing, staring. Look over to my right, there's somebody out of the car walking around. I look behind me, there's somebody yelling on the phone. So I stopped the doctor and I said, Doctor, can I ask you a question? And explain this exact situation to you, just like I just did. Left, right, behind me, in front. Now, doctor, do you think everybody's doing the same thing I'm doing? He goes, no, you just told me they aren't. And I go, all right. And the person left to me or right of me, behind me, myself, or the people who are reacting to the accident, who's right? He goes, they're all reacting differently. And I asked him that question. Is the traffic jam any different for any one of us? And that's the key to it, right? The choice is how you react to that situation. Nobody else was doing what I was doing, but that was my choice. But don't we have the choice to do that? Don't we have the choice not to yell, get out of the car and scream, to maybe listen to music and dance, right? We all have that choice. And that is the power, I think, that we all have to understand and take back, is that in our society, sometimes we feel like we don't have choice. We feel like we're stuck in this life. And that was this employee. He felt like he was stuck in this life because he did this, and this, and that's it. I'm stuck. I can't do anything different. And now I'm down this path and my life is miserable and the world is different and everything's miserable. But as soon as he now realizes it's a choice, now he realizes he can change anything. And that's empowering. You can change anything. If you live in a life you don't like, change it.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's bring this back to a practical, it is practical. Now let's apply it. So on your larger team, what do you have to have on your team and what can't you have on your team?
Ask that question a little differently.
Well, personality-wise, for example, you're talking about people that are leading with stress, that are leading with, like I might say, like leading with the can't or the won't or the downtrodden or the put upon. So like, as a setup, when you look at your team, maybe your executive team, maybe it's just your team in general, what are you really looking for, which might be easier to answer based on what you said, and what is not going to work for Pete Rogers on his team, personality-wise?
I think I choose to believe everybody can work on the team, but I also don't feel it's my task or my responsibility to change them. I give them the tools to change, but they have to take that decision to change. And not everyone's going to want to change, and not everyone's going to want to live in this environment. So, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And those that don't want to change will find a reason to live in the comfortable life, because your brain will live in a comfortable life that it is known rather than live in something that's unknown, because the brain knows that it can survive what it did yesterday. And living in today is something completely unknown, and it lives in fear. It doesn't want you to be successful in an unknown because it gets scared. And people get to those old habits and patterns. And when people start to change, look out. It gets difficult. It gets tough, because your habits, your old patterns, your old beliefs, everything come in, old people come in. You ever wonder why when you try to change something, all the old habits come back? That's your brain going, whoa, wait, stop. We're not going to do that. No, that's unknown. We can't do that. And some people can't ever change, and that's not our job to change them. They have to change themselves. They have to take that task and that responsibility. This employee jumped right in, jumped in the car, listened to the book, wrote a report, talked to his wife, and it's changed. That's his choice. But I got to tell you, the success rate of that isn't 100%. Not everybody changes. So I choose to believe everybody can change. But if they don't, I respect them to move on their way and find an environment that's better for them.
Is this culture of wellness and stability transferable, Pete? I mean, you're respectfully submitted later stage career, top of your game. After you leave, will it revert back to the ways of most companies where it's sell, and wellness and longevity be damned, or is this sustainable and transferable?
Great question. I choose to believe it is transferable. I choose to believe it is sustainable. I choose to believe that the next generation definitely is different from my generation. My generation is more set in their ways and had a different set of belief systems. And I think that the next generation coming up of young kids in the 20s and 30s and 40s, they're more open to concepts like this and discussions like this and being open. And I love the generation coming in, the 25 to 45-year-old. They're great people. They're fantastic. And they are more open. So I do believe it's sustainable. And I do believe there's an exit for me to come in there, and we'll all hand the keys over to one or somebody else. And I believe it will continue because being an ESOP, which I do believe is the future of businesses, being an ESOP.
Yeah. Basically, that means an employee-owned business eventually. For those of you who aren't familiar with the term, it will revert into an employee-owned business. Or evolve, I should say, not revert, evolve.
I worry about people that come and work for a company for 20, 25 years, and then we pat them on the back and say, thanks, see you later. Hey, how's your 401k doing? And it's nice that companies add to a 401k. But if a person's going to put the most valuable resource they have, 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours a week, and take away from their family, their kids, miss a soccer game, miss a graduation, whatever it is, because they want to make that company better, there should be some reward for them.
Yeah, I like that mindset. You're a coach internally, like very much a coach, more so than most CEOs would be. And I'm a coach for a living. And am I interested in having somebody do short-term change? Because like Nick told me what to do or say. Yeah, sure. But as soon as I leave, it's like a hole you dig too close to the ocean. It just fills back in. So what I'm really focused on is, can I get them to understand why this is important? Why, an example is the sanctity of a leadership room where there's 9 of us in here, and I'm making the number up, 200 people work on the company. So if it's 200 people times 4 people in their family, then 9 of us have direct line of sight on the happiness, health, prosperity of all these people. Like, do you understand the sanctity of that, the power of that, or the power of your voice when you complain, when you're super stressed out, when you're talking smack about what happened inside the leadership group? That is terrible leadership behavior. But when I get somebody to understand and you can see their paradigm shift, and I suspect that's what happened with your employee that listened to the book on the way home and had like some really insightful things to say, they're shifting their paradigm. They understand different. It's not because Pete's told me to do this, because I understand what he's saying and why. And I also think, and I'd love to hear your comment, part of the reason the generation behind you and maybe even me is more open-minded is I think they want to be happier by and large than we were. They saw us get unhappy, and I hunt for that in my practice. I hunt for very successful, unhappy people. And I think that's maybe why they're more open to it.
Yeah, very good. I love that. What you said that's so powerful first that resonates is that there is no quick fix, right? It's like if you want to get more fit, you can't go to the gym once a year or take a class from somebody or go to a camp, right? You've got to take the effort to do it 2 times a week. Just walk 2 times a week or 3 times a week, do something. No. And that is the key here. I think the key takeaway is that this isn't a magic wand. It does take intention and attention. And it's really easy. At 90 seconds, focusing your attention in the area of your heart and bringing in feelings of gratitude, grateful things you're grateful for, or people, places, and things doesn't take a lot of time. But I'd love to tell you that I'm perfect. I'm not. I get stressed out some days too, and I just have to catch myself, because every time you do that, you reprogram those connections from that situation where maybe I reacted a year ago, 2 years ago in the same manner. And every time I catch myself and every time I reprogram it from stress to calm down, good, I've reprogrammed the neurological connections in my brain to react like that. And that's a win.
I love what you just said. Like, for those of you listening who think Pete doesn't, or I mean, I've gotten exponentially better at this over time. I have tools I didn't used to have. I just didn't have them. I didn't understand. And I don't understand at the level you understand, which is why your teachings resonate with me and why I want to hear more. But what you said is important. Like, don't think he's perfect. No, I'm not perfect, but I have tools now. I being Pete, have developed tools to catch myself before I spiral, to work myself back, as the weeble wobble analogy goes, from like on my side to back up to center. But it's not because I'm perfect and don't feel stress indicators. I do, is what you're saying. And I'm not perfect at it. Don't think it's going to be linear. If you decide to read some of the things Pete said, and I'm going to, especially the courage to be disliked, I think you said, I have to go back on my notes. It's not going to be linear. For me, it was, all kinds of things. It was too hard, especially as my voice got more powerful. Like, that's an individual contributor approach, Nick. That's not a CEO approach. Or interrupting a briefing that's bad news, and I can see it right away, or I think I can, so I start interrupting it. And the person that works for me says, Nick, in front of 30 people, if you will let me finish, I will answer 90% of your questions. I mean, it's not linear. There's back, but what you're saying is get tools to pull yourself out of it.
And then what you'll do is you'll reprogram those connections. There are people, as you notice, I pause, I talk slowly. So people feel like they have to feel those, jump in there, and then I'll stop and pause again and bring in. And I find myself in the past, I had interrupted people, and that was a learning exercise for me. So you're so right, is that to be powerful enough to be listening, to be open, right? To be also vulnerable, to say, hey, you're right, I was wrong. Let's try it a different way. And has been a challenge for a lot of us leaders to be able to do that, because we get set out on these pedestals, and we are by ourselves, and we're making decisions by ourselves, and we're in a position where we make decisions by ourselves, and we get used to it. And then that becomes, I'm giving orders because I'm making those decisions. And yet a team or tribe that we've surrounded ourselves with, a family we've surrounded ourselves with, is going to be more powerful. I remember one time my son and I were trying to put together a marketing thing, and there was an idea that we could create this whole thing, kind of like Jeopardy, And I said, okay, we'll get these PVC pipes, we'll lay the pipes out, we'll put a little thing up like this, we'll put a box on it, it'll spin around, question, dollar sign will be up here, we'll spin it around. And he looks at me, he's like, Dad, just look online. We just project it with a screen. But, sometimes here I am thinking of the greatest thing in the world is PVC pipes and boxes that we hand write on. And he's like, Dad, just do it online. See, concept either way could work, but yet to be more modern, easier, faster than PVC pipes at Home Depot built together and assembled in some type of a structure, and therefore to listen to the ideas and to share them and to laugh about ourselves and say, that's a good idea. Let's do that. I think is really where this next generation can teach us.
Yeah, I like to laugh at yourself. So as we get to what's probably the bottom of the ninth inning here in baseball vernacular, if I did a 360 on you, meaning came in and you gave me access to your people at, some reasonable level, what do you think I'd get back?
He's authentic. He's human. He makes mistakes. He's willing to change.
I'm a big, strong 6'4", 200-pound male. That gives me goosebumps. I love that. I really do. They think we got it all figured out. We don't. We're not trying to say we do. I love humble, successful leaders. I'm convinced humility is a dividing line. I know it is, between good and great. And for you to say that, I didn't know what you were going to say. What else might they say? Anything else?
They'd probably also say he drinks too much coffee is probably what they'd say.
Hey, it's better than you run a beer company or a distillery and you drink too much whiskey, or too much beer. What are you excited about for the future, and what should I be asking you that I didn't ask you about?
Well, I love being a part of people's lives and helping them change. That's what always excites me in the future. And I love the positioning of this company because we're also changing ourselves to be more focused on, different new products that are innovative and new into the market. And I'm really happy that Java City coming back as a brand. We're so grateful that so many people love Java City as a brand, and that we're grateful that we're the stewards of this brand now, and to bring this forward and to give more experiences of people that they can connect and open up and become part of the Java City family. So I'm really excited about that. This will be a really nice sized company, and I'm really excited. I think in 20 years, when somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, wow, we did it. Thanks. I can retire comfortably," I'll be really happy.
So cool. These books talk about the people before the product and the who before the what. My sense is you take much more joy from the who than the what, even though the what's going really well. The product's going well, but it's the people part that lights you up and springs you out of bed.
Yeah, very true.
Unless you have anything else for me.
Thank you much. It's been beautiful to spend some more time with you and get to know you.
Thank you. Pete Rogers, you've done a phenomenal job helping us learn from you today. Thank you also to our producer, Riley Byrne, and the outstanding team behind him at Podigy Podcast. Thank you again, Pete Rogers, and see you all next month on Together at the Top. Thank you so much for your time. Together at the Top thrives off listeners like you. To stay connected, follow our socials in the show notes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We will be releasing our show on the last Tuesday of every month. See you next time. At Nick Warner Consulting, we exist to coach and consult motivated professionals. I meet with you on Zoom in focused 90-minute sessions, working toward your goals and developing next-level business skill sets. My job is to add value to your organization and your career. To learn more, visit www.nickwarnerconsulting.com or call me directly at 916-765-3576.